Okay, so imagine this. You're working on a research project, but instead of having to rely on a grad student who's probably running on fumes and way too much coffee,
Yeah.
you've got an AI assistant, right? And not just any AI, one that can actually dig through all those research papers, write code, run experiments, and even put together the whole report.
It sounds pretty futuristic, doesn't it?
It does. But that's exactly what this new system called Agent Laboratory is trying to do. And we're going to take a deep dive into the research and see if it actually lives up to all the hype.
We've got a fascinating research paper to look at Agent Laboratory using LLM agents as research assistants. It was just published today, January 9th, 2025.
Oh, wow.
A team from AMD and Johns Hopkins University put this together, and it's definitely making some waves in the research world.
I bet. So in this deep dive, we're going to try to break down exactly how this agent laboratory works, what its strengths and weaknesses might be, and we'll see what actual researchers who've had a chance to try it out have to say about it.
And maybe most importantly, we'll try to figure out what this means for the future of research, right? I mean, are we on the verge of some kind of research revolution, or is this just another one of those AI fads that comes and goes?
Well, let's start by figuring out how this whole agent laboratory thing actually works.
Okay.
The paper talks about this three-stage pipeline: literature review, experimentation, and report writing.
But what's really cool is that each stage is handled by a specialized AI agent, almost like you've got a whole team of researchers working for you.
Yeah, so it's like an AI dream team. Tell me more about these AI players.
Okay, well, you've got one AI agent that's acting like a super dedicated PhD student, right? Just plowing through tons of research papers. Then there's another agent that's like a seasoned postdoc, coming up with research plans and hypotheses. And of course, you can't have a research team without an ML engineer agent. So laboratory has one of those too, coding up the experiments.
Wait, so the AI is writing its own code? That's crazy.
It is, and it gets even more interesting. There's this module called the model solver, and it's specifically designed to generate that machine learning code. And what's really neat is that it uses this reward system so it can actually learn from its mistakes and make the code better each time.
So it's like a self-learning programmer constantly improving.
Exactly. And hold on, there's more. They've got another module, the paper solver, and this one takes all the research findings and automatically structures them into a proper research paper with all the sections, like the abstract, intro, methods, results, and all that.
Oh, wow. So it's not just crunching numbers and running experiments. It's trying to write a full-fledged research paper that actually makes sense.
It is pretty ambitious, right?
Yeah. So how do they know if it actually works? Did they test this thing out?
They did. To see how well it performs, they tested Agent Laboratory on some real machine learning challenges.
Okay.
And these challenges are taken from a benchmark called MLE Bench.
MLE Bench. What is that, like some sort of AI Olympics?
You could say that. It's a benchmark that's based on Kaggle competitions. That's where all the best AI systems compete against each other on a whole bunch of different tasks.
Wow, so Agent Laboratory is going up against some serious competition. How did it do?
Well, get this. Agent Laboratory actually won medals on a bunch of those MLE bench tasks. It even outperformed some other cutting-edge AI solutions.
Really? So it's not just some theoretical idea, it's actually producing results.
Yeah.
But medals are one thing. How does it work in the real world, when real researchers try to use it?
That's the big question, right? And the researchers did try to figure that out. They actually had PhD students evaluate the output of Agent Laboratory.
So what did these human experts think? Were they impressed?
It's interesting. The results were kind of mixed.
So even though it did great in those machine learning challenges, it wasn't a slam dunk with the human researchers.
Yeah, that's right. It seemed like some of the language models they used, the LLMs, did better than others, and some research topics were harder for the AI to handle.
So maybe it's better at certain types of research than others.
Could be. What about the researchers who got to use that co-pilot mode? That's where they can give feedback to the AI at each step.
Right. So were they happy with the experience?
Overall, they liked having the help, but there were some bumps in the road. Some researchers felt like they were kind of fighting with the AI in trying to steer it in the right direction.
It's like that classic problem of humans and machines trying to work together.
Exactly. It's easy enough to have a tool that helps you out, but it's a whole other ballgame to have a tool that actually understands your goals and can seamlessly work alongside you.
It makes you wonder, are we heading towards a true partnership with AI, or is it just becoming a really sophisticated tool?
It's a good question, and probably one that we'll be trying to figure out for a while.
Well, before we get too deep into the philosophy of all this, let's talk about the practical stuff.
Right.
How much does all this AI brilliance cost? And is it actually efficient?
You ready for this? Agent Laboratory, using that GPT-4o LLM, could put together a research paper for just 2.333.
$2.33. That's like less than a cup of coffee.
I know. It's incredibly affordable, especially compared to how research is usually done.
That's wild. What about efficiency? Does it actually get the job done?
Yeah, for the most part, it was pretty reliable.
Okay.
Although it did have a few hiccups here and there, especially in that literature review stage.
So it's not perfect. It sounds like there's still room for improvement, particularly when it comes to gathering information from those research papers.
Yeah, it seems like that's a bit of a recurring theme with these AI systems. They're amazing at processing and analyzing data that's already structured, but they still have a hard time with all the nuances of human language and the complexities of real-world research.
So we've got Agent Laboratory, affordable, relatively efficient, and it can get some impressive results on those standardized tests. But it looks like it still has limitations, especially when we compare it to what human experts can do.
Exactly. And that leads us to some even bigger questions about the role of AI in research and what it might mean for the future of science. Is this technology going to help us humans do even better research? Or are there risks and unintended consequences that we need to be aware of?
That's a great question, and that's exactly what we'll be exploring in the next part of our deep dive. So stay tuned because we're just getting started.
So before the break, we were talking about some of the limitations of Agent Laboratory.
Right. It's affordable, it's efficient. It can even crank out a research paper for just a few bucks.
Yeah.
But it sounds like it's not exactly perfect.
Not quite. The researchers actually dedicated a whole section of this paper to the limitations and potential issues, which is a good sign that they're thinking about this stuff.
So what are some of the things they point out? What do researchers need to be aware of if they're thinking about using this Agent Laboratory?
One of the big ones is the whole issue of self-evaluation.
Okay.
So you see that paper solver module, the one that writes the actual research report, relies on LLMs to kind of act like virtual peer reviewers.
So the AI is basically grading its own work.
Pretty much. And you can probably guess, these AI reviewers, they're not always the best judges of quality, especially when you're talking about something as complex as a research paper.
So even if the AI thinks it's written this amazing, groundbreaking paper, a human might read it and be like, wait a minute, this doesn't really hold up.
Exactly. The paper even gives an example where the AI reviewers gave a paper a really high score, but then when human reviewers looked at it, they found all these problems with the logic and the analysis.
Wow.
It just goes to show that AI still has a long way to go when it comes to understanding all the nuances of human language and reasoning, especially in a field like research.
Absolutely. What else did they talk about in terms of limitations?
Well, they also brought up the issue of hallucination. We've talked about that before on the show.
Right, that's where the AI just starts making stuff up.
Right. It generates these statements that sound totally believable, but they're completely made up.
Like the AI equivalent of telling a tall tale.
Exactly. But I thought this Agent Laboratory was supposed to be more advanced than that.
Right.
Well, it seems like even Agent Laboratory isn't immune to this problem.
Really?
Yeah, the paper talks about a case where the AI generated all these technical details about a machine learning technique called hyperparameter optimization, I think it was.
Okay, so it was using all the right words, but the details were bogus.
Completely made up. It's a good reminder that we can't just trust everything these AI systems tell us. We still need that human oversight, that critical thinking to sort out what's real and what's not.
So it seems like while this Agent Laboratory can be a really powerful tool, we have to remember that it's got its limitations.
Definitely.
It can struggle with evaluating its own work. It can sometimes make stuff up.
Yeah.
And it still needs a human expert to kind of guide it and make sure everything is accurate.
Exactly. And all those limitations bring us to a bigger question about the role of AI in research in general. I mean, what does it mean for us human researchers if an AI can potentially do so much of the work?
That's a great question. Like if AI can write code and run experiments and even draft papers, what's left for humans to do?
Right. It's a question that people are going to be debating for years to come.
I bet.
Some people think that AI is eventually going to replace human researchers altogether, leading to this future where science is basically run by algorithms.
That sounds a little scary, honestly.
Yeah, I get that. But other people argue that AI is actually going to help human researchers. It'll free us from all those tedious tasks and let us focus on the bigger picture, the creative stuff.
So instead of replacing us, AI becomes more like a partner.
Exactly. Like imagine having this superpowered research assistant that can handle all the boring stuff while you get to focus on brainstorming and coming up with new theories and connecting the dots.
That sounds a lot better. But even then, there are still some big questions.
Right.
Like, how do we make sure that AI is used responsibly in research? How do we prevent misuse or bias?
Those are some really important questions, and that's what we're going to be talking about in the next part of our deep dive. So don't go anywhere. We're about to get to the really good stuff.
So we're back, and we've been talking all about Agent Laboratory and how it could change the way we do research.
Yeah, we've seen what it can do, generating code, running experiments, even writing those research papers.
Right? But we've also talked about some of the things it struggles with.
Yeah, like sometimes making stuff up or having trouble evaluating its own work.
It seems like AI still has some learning to do when it comes to research.
Definitely. But that doesn't mean we should just ignore these new technologies.
I agree.
It's important to have these conversations and figure out how to use AI in a way that's responsible and helps us do better research.
Absolutely. I'm curious to know what our listeners think about all this.
Me too.
What are some of your hopes and concerns about AI being used in research?
Well, one listener made a point that really stuck with me. They said that even though Agent Laboratory can analyze data and write reports, it doesn't really understand the problem or think critically.
Right, like it can spit out information, but it's not really thinking deeply about the problem or coming up with new ideas.
That's it. It can help us speed things up, but it can't replace human creativity and insight.
Another listener asked a question that I think is really important.
Oh, yeah.
They asked, if AI is writing research papers, who gets the credit?
That's a tough one.
Right. I mean, is it the people who made the AI or the researchers who used it?
Or maybe it's both, like some kind of partnership.
Yeah, it seems like our old ideas about authorship don't really work when AI is involved.
It's like we need a whole new way of thinking about these things.
And it's not just research either, right?
No.
AI is starting to create all kinds of stuff, music, art, even writing novels.
It really makes you think about what it means to be creative in a world where machines can do so much.
So where do we go from here? What happens as AI gets even more powerful and starts showing up everywhere?
Well, the researchers who created Agent Laboratory had a few ideas.
Okay.
They talked about responsible development, being transparent about how we're using AI, and making sure everyone's involved in the conversation.
So it's all about working together and making sure we're using AI for good.
Exactly. We need to be thinking about the benefits and the risks, how to make the most of the good stuff and avoid the bad.
And ultimately, what kind of future we want to build with this technology.
Those are big questions, and we can't answer them all here.
I wish we could.
But hopefully this deep dive has given you some things to think about and maybe even inspired you to learn more.
Absolutely. If there's one thing I hope you take away from this, it's that AI is a powerful tool.
It is.
And it has the potential to change how we do research and help us discover amazing things.
Yeah.
But like any tool, we need to use it carefully and think about the impact it can have.
This is just the start of the conversation.
It really.
And we need everyone to be a part of it. Ask questions, challenge assumptions, share your thoughts. Because the future of research is being shaped right now.
So keep exploring, keep learning, and keep asking those tough questions.
Who knows, maybe one day you'll have your own AI research assistant helping you unlock the secrets of the universe.
That's a great thought. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Agent Laboratory and the future of AI and research.